Alright, this is your video for area of a circle. Now, we're also going to talk about perimeter here, and the perimeter of a circle has a special name. It is called the circumference. Okay, so perimeter of circle is called the circumference. Now remember, the perimeter is the distance around. This has a special formula, because it's very hard for us to take a ruler and measure the distance of a circle since the circle is curved. So the formula, and instead of using P, I'm going to use C. C equals, here's your formula for the circumference, diameter times pi. Alright, so D is diameter, and that symbol is the pi symbol. Okay? Now, most of us already know the the approximation for pi. We use 3.14. Alright, and we'll talk about when to use 3.14 and pi, or the pi button on your calculator, which causes people some problems, when we get to a little later, when we get to exact versus approximate answers. But that's how we find the circumference of a circle. Diameter times pi. Now the area of a circle, it doesn't have a special name, but the area of a circle has a different formula. It's pi r squared, and r is the radius of the circle. Now something I want you to remember is the radius is half the diameter. Okay, I've got a picture here. Here would be our radius from the center to the circle. The diameter is the whole thing. It goes all the way across, but it has to go through the center. Right? So the radius goes from the center to the outside, diameter goes the whole way across, and the radius is half of the diameter. Now before we do our couple examples, we're going to talk about exact versus approximate answers. Exact answers, you leave pi, that pi symbol, in the problem, or in your answer, in your answer. Okay? That's how we give an exact answer. We could also leave square roots. If we ended up having square root in the problem, we would leave that too. We don't want to see any decimals, really. That's what we want. Okay? So another way of saying this, if you might see solve in terms of pi, or pi, that means they want the exact answer. They want you to leave that pi symbol in your answer to the problem, which is nice. It's easier to solve that way. I'll show you a problem because it's less work. An approximate answer, you want a decimal. And you're going to use 3.14. Okay, I want you to use 3.14 unless it tells you otherwise. You use 3.14, not the pi button on the calculator. Okay? Do not use the pi button on the calculator, because when we use the pi button, it takes it out to a bunch more decimals. And if we have more decimals, it's going to change our answer. It opens the opportunity for our answer to be larger or smaller than what we would do if we rounded it, what we would have if we rounded it. So I want you to use 3.14. Okay? Do not use the pi button on the calculator. But if they ask for an approximate answer, you're going to have a decimal. You're going to swap pi out for 3.14. Okay? Let's look at our examples here. We've got 3 examples, 2 simple ones and then a word problem. First one says r is 4 feet. We want to determine the circumference and the area, and we want the exact answers for these. That means we're going to leave pi in the problem. All right, start with circumference. Circumference equals diameter times pi. Now, we don't have the diameter, we have the radius, but the diameter, remember, is twice the radius. So I take 2 times 4, that means my diameter is 8. So my circumference is 8 pi feet. This is the exact answer. Notice I left pi in the problem. Okay, I didn't make it 3.14. That's what I want to see. Area of a circle is pi r squared. I want the exact, so I'm going to leave pi. 4 squared. 4 squared is really 16, and I'm going to put the pi symbol at the end, feet squared. There's the area of that circle. Okay? Notice again that they both have pi symbols in them. That's what it means to have an exact answer. Let's look at our second example. It says the diameter is 10 inches. We want the approximate answer to the tenths place. That means we're going to use 3.14. 3.14 is taken out to the hundredths, so when we get our answer, we want it to the tenths place. Now, it's important when you do these to read the directions. Most of the time, it's going to say hundredth. Here, it says tenth, though, okay? So let's start. Circumference equals diameter times pi. Well, we know the diameter is 10. We're going to use 3.14 for pi. 10 times 3.14 is 31.4. That's nice. Inches. It's already in the tenths place, so we are good to go. There would be our approximate answer for the circumference. The area, we have the diameter. It's 10, so we divide that by 2. 5 is our radius, because remember the radius is half the diameter. So we have 3.14 for pi, and then 5 squared. 5 squared is really 25. So now we have 3.14 times 25. And we put that in our calculator. Again, when we put it in the calculator, we're going to use 3.14, not the pi button. 3.14 times 25 is 78.5. Put a label, inches squared. Okay? Now, notice how on both of those examples I had C equals and A equals. That's how I want to see your answers. I don't want you to just write numbers down with a label on them, because it's a common mistake to forget the square on an area. So if you just write a number down that doesn't have the correct label, I might get confused and figure out you're talking about the circumference instead of the area. So I always want to see C equals and A equals. Okay, our last example says if the area of a circle is 50.24 centimeters squared, what's the diameter? So for this example, we're going to work backward. Okay, they give us the area, so we're going to use our area formula, pi r squared. We want to figure out the radius. All right, now this is as a decimal. That means we're going to use 3.14 in r squared. And we know our area is 50.24. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3.14. Cancel those out. 50.24 divided by 3.14 is really 16. So 16 equals r squared. We square root this. Cancels out our radical. Square root of 16 is 4, so our radius is 4. We want the diameter, though. So now I have to take 4 times 2, and my diameter is 8. Make sure we put a label on it. 8 centimeters, and that's my diameter. Okay? So that's another typical example you'll see where you have to work backward and either find the radius or the diameter of the circle, given the circumference or the area. You could have had either one and still work backward. Just make sure you know the formulas. Okay, those are your notes on area of a circle. If you have questions, go back and rewatch this. This is something most of you have seen before, but if you still have questions, go back and rewatch it. And then if you still have questions after that, bring them to class next.